I call the meeting to order, and I'd like a motion to adopt remote participation as written in the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? Roll call vote. Pam?
Pam Nurse Acton, yes.
Sarah Montague Arlington, yes.
Linda Herbison Bolton, yes.
Steve Ledoux, Concord, yes.
Maggie Sharon Dover, yes.
Sharon Musto Lexington, yes.
Jeff Stuland Needham, yes.
Alice DeLucas, Joe, yes.
Good. My understanding is that we have no public comment. Is that correct, Julia?
That is correct.
Very good. Consent agenda. Received no comments in the minutes, so I will like a motion to approve the draft minutes of October 9th, 2024, and November 12th, 2024 as written, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion of those two sets of minutes? Hearing none, bring it to the vote. Pam?
Pam Nurse Acton, yes.
Sarah Montague Arlington, yes.
Linda Herbison Bolton, yes.
Steve Ledoux, Concord, yes.
Maggie Sharon Dover, yes.
Sharon Musto Lexington, yes.
Jeff Stuland Needham, yes. And
Alice
Charlene?
yes.
Charlene, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
We were voting on the consent agenda of the two sets of minutes.
Charlene Cabral Lancaster, yes.
Very good. Okay. Great. Chair's report. I have something for the good of the organization, but would somebody else have something for the good of the organization to speak up? Okay, my for the good of the organization is to give the school committee members a little heads up on things that will be coming up. So we are now halfway through our school committee year, believe it or not. Yes, Al said it's exactly right. We are in essentially in mid-December. And things have been, pretty easy for the school committee so far. Not that many big, but a lot of exciting things are coming up that are going to require your attention. So I'm just going to rattle off a few of these so that you will understand and give you maybe an opportunity. One of the most exciting things our year is our budget discussion, which you will hear Steve talk about briefly today at the full school committee. Now, the FinCom has received the first draft of the superintendent's budget, and the administration is going to go off and come up with a second draft. And pretty much at that point, it's going to be shortly thereafter presented to the full school committee for your review and comments, and then shortly thereafter to the public finance session, the public budget session. Now, for some of you who may not be up to date on the Minuteman budget format, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest that the prior year budgets book is sent to all members, so that all members, especially the newer ones, will see what the format of the budget book is. Now, it won't be the exact same this year, but it'll be close enough. The second thing I'm going to see if the membership is interested is for those of you that are relatively new, you may want a little bit of a tutorial on the pieces of the budget and the pieces of the budget book. And that could be given by Steve, it could be given by Nikki, whomever. So are there any members who would be interested in that? Are suggesting that they create this kind of presentation / tutorial to bring you up to date on things you may not understand of our budget book. If not, I'll just, squelch it.
Sure.
Okay. A few. Okay. So it would be good. I'll leave it to Steve and Nikki and the superintendent to try to create just a brief presentation, an online presentation for those people who would like to be brought up to date on that prior to when you have to vote on the budget. Okay. Another very exciting event that's coming up in February, I'm very much looking forward to this, is the superintendent's presentation of, what I learned during my summer vacation. No, everything that she has learned about the school and kind of her vision of starting to move forward. That's my understanding of what we're receiving in February. That's kind of one of the highlights of our year. I'm looking very much forward to that. And once that happens, I suspect that we're going to have a lot of discussion and perhaps some needs to act on various things. So that's coming up in February. Another thing is that you may recall that towards the end of the previous school committee year, we discussed about having a retreat, possibly in the fall of this year. And the decision was made that the fall is not a good time for it because the superintendent is just brand new and it doesn't make sense, but we probably should have a school committee retreat. And so I suspect I'm going to suggest to the officers that we plan sometime for the spring, a school committee retreat. This would begin after the superintendent's presentation and after the budget, in which we get together for a number of hours and discuss various school committee-ish things. Which ones we discuss will be considered after the superintendent's presentation. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to suggest that to the officers, and they'll, maybe develop a proposal to bring to the full school committee for your approval or disapproval. Just thought, that's coming up. That would be in person at the school, the retreat. Something that I'm extremely looking forward to on the financial front is the capital planning subcommittee has been doing a lot of very interesting work of looking at how we can maintain this facility in its primo condition over a long period of time. What needs to be done to do so, and what resources do we need, and how does that impact our budget? And that's what they've been working on. I do expect that they're going to make a significant presentation to the school committee sometime during this school committee year. And that is something I've been looking forward to for more than a decade. When you come to think of it, I've been asking for that since the beginning of time, and now we're finally going to get it. Because what a lot of schools do is they don't consider this in their budget, and the facility deteriorates over time. And they end up with a facility that has to be replaced earlier than its suggested life. And we would like to avoid that. We would like to keep our facility in good condition, which requires financial oversight, long-term financial oversight, like 10 or 20 years of planning ahead in a sense. And they've been working on that very hard, and I'm very, very excited, and that's going to happen sometime this school committee year. Is that correct, Alice? Yes, I'm very excited to hear that. One other item is that's going to be coming up, and the reason I bring this up is that this is going to require some training for school committee members, is we're going to do a school committee evaluation. Now, we did not do one of these last year, or really for a few years, because it wasn't really quite relevant. But we are going to be doing one this year. And we have to start planning for that now, because it happens in like May or June. I don't know quite the exact month in my head, but so we're going to have to start, and that requires the school committee members who may have not have done this before, and this may be most of you, to be brought up to date on how the process works. Now, the process is based on the goals that the superintendent presented and that we voted on. And there is a subcommittee who is being led by Pam, who's some experience doing this. And I think that one of the things we'll do at one of our meetings is have a little training session. And one of our meetings, we're going to have many meetings in which Pam is going to give a presentation, or members from her committee are going to give a presentation on what the procedure to do so is. So we want to make sure that we're on time for this, and we follow the policies and the contract and the whole kettle of fish. So that's coming up too, and that's going to require some school committee level training. So that's my items for the good of the organization. A lot of interesting things coming up. I look forward to this stuff. So I guess, so talk about people who, need a life. Okay, any questions or comments on that list that I brought up? Did we lose the superintendent?
He's coming in right now.
Yeah, okay. She got so excited by her evaluation, I guess, that she had to leave for a minute. Okay, give her, there she is, okay. As far as school committee goals go, you got an email today that had a list of the ones so far. Now, some of the committees haven't met yet. So we have a few more coming, but I sent out the ones that I have, and I think that they're all pretty clear. I'm not going to have a vote or discussion on them at this time. In another month, we'll have a couple others joining it, but I wanted to get those out because they've been voted on by their various subcommittees. So that concludes the chair's report. And I'm going to turn this over to the principal. Has all sorts of fascinating things for us this evening. So Paul, you're on, I think.
Thank you, everyone. And Julie, if I'm able to share my screen, I can have our student reps start off and then I'll do my end.
Certainly.
Can everybody see? Perfect. So again, I'd like to welcome our two student representatives. We have Riley Trudell, our senior, and Truesdale, excuse me, and Matilda Trudell, our junior representative, and they each are going to share something that they experienced during the month of November. So Riley, I'm going to let you go first.
Thank you. Yeah, so we had a wonderful Thanksgiving luncheon on November 26th in preparation for our upcoming Thanksgiving game that happened on Thanksgiving Day. There were senior football players and cheerleaders from Minuteman as well as Keefe Tech, as they were to be our opponents for our Thanksgiving game this year again. Some of the coaches, Mr. Fusco, Ms. Murphy, and Mr. Diego was there, spoke some words of encouragement as we went on to our Thanksgiving game. And then we also had some delicious food that was provided from culinary, even though it may not have been like the traditional like mashed potatoes or turkey or ham that other people enjoy, but we had some delicious chicken parm and some pasta as well as some salad and rolls. This is even though I'm a senior, I'm really excited that this is going to hopefully be one of our new traditions especially for some of the senior football players and cheerleaders. As we hope to do this again next year with Keefe Tech, as I believe we're going to be hosting the Thanksgiving game next year. So maybe hopefully we'll be able to have a luncheon at Keefe Tech. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions regarding the luncheon? All right, Matilda, I'm going to go to you next to talk about our pep rally and our powder puff game.
Yeah, so on November 27th, we had a pep rally and powder puff football game. It was incredible. We started out with just having all 4 grades gather in the gymnasium. We welcomed all of our fall sports teams. So for all those people that are not in any sports, it was nice to kind of put some faces to all of the wonderful seasons we had this year, and all of the wonderful wins we had. Following that, we had quite the entertaining game, where grade versus grade went up against each other to play this mattress sliding competition where we would run at a mattress, an air mattress, and see how far it would slide. And it was kind of a competition on who could get it across the gym first. The winning grade ended up being the juniors, who then went against a group of teachers, which was very entertaining. Following that, in the gymnasium, Mr. DeLeva and a group of seniors led the school in a little skit, which involved kind of a fake scandal where our quarterback was taken by the Keefe Tech players, and it was a very entertaining watch to kind of watch all of our seniors role play and get our quarterback back. It was great school spirit because none of the superheroes were able to do it, but our lovely Minuteman students were able to rescue our quarterback. And then we all headed outside for a entertaining round of a powder puff football game where our juniors and seniors went up against each other. So juniors are there in the pink and seniors are there in the black. The seniors ended up winning that game, which personally I think they deserved, having it be their senior year. It was quite an entertaining watch, and then we were all dismissed from there. So it was a lovely little way to wrap up school before we all headed off to Thanksgiving break.
Thank you, Matilda. Does anybody have any questions regarding the pep rally and the powder puff game? Great. So again, I want to thank our student reps for presenting what's going on in Minuteman from their eyes, and giving the reports to things that are occurring. And I'm sure in January, we'll explain what's been going on in December and continue that pattern throughout the rest of the school committee meetings.
I guess I will make actually one comment. The first is, even though we had no questions, it does not mean that we're not intensely interested, and very happy to hear your report. It's just that, we may not have questions because your presentation was so clear. The only thing that came to my mind is that you gave lunch to your rivals in the football game, which caught my attention. If only we had more of that kind of standard of thinking in other aspects of our nation, I think we'd be much better off.
Yeah, and just to go into that for 1 second, Riley, if you don't mind, if I could interject on your slide. The idea that we are developing is that, in speaking with Keefe Tech, since we're hosting the game next year, they would like to host us. So that will continue back and forth if they continue to be our rival on the Thanksgiving Day game. So really, it was a great time by all. And again, as Riley had said, really, really just great school spirit on both ends. And I was happy to break bread with the rival team as well. So, and I think it just sets a good tone for the next day.
I think I saw Alice's hands up.
Yes, I just wanted to say, same as Jeff, that both Riley and Matilda should be very proud of their presentation because we had no questions to ask. So good job, you.
Great.
Sharon, is your hand up?
Yeah, just Riley, am I correct that we actually won the football game on Thanksgiving Day?
Yeah, we did win the Thanksgiving game this year. Yep.
That's good. Yeah, 16-14, and that trophy that's in the Keefe Tech's coach hand is in our hands.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Great. So, whoops, going the wrong way. So moving on to my portion of the leadership report, I just wanted to give we as the school council wanted to give the school committee update regarding where we're at, what we've been doing, who we are, because it's a new year with myself, and making sure that we're following the procedure that's there. So things that we're going to talk about is who's on our school council. You may not be aware of who's participating as of this year, what we're working on as of now, and what our next steps are from there. And if you just look at the graphic that's really there, when you're really talking about change in environment and structure, when you have all stakeholders that are involved, it really makes for a good collaboration of making sure that the environment is positive. So many of you may know this, and I just wanted to quickly review it, that this came from the Ed Reform Act in 1993, where sort of power had shifted a little bit regarding who was in charge of what, even with school committees, as well as principals, as well as other staff members as well. And the idea was to develop a school-based committee that would analyze things that were going on at each school level. And that's composed of a principal and parents and teachers. And then at our level, which is the high school level, we are required to have a student representative as well. So for our school council, and I do have a couple people here, and I'd love for them to introduce themselves. Obviously, I am part of that group. We do have two teachers here. I'd like to introduce them. First is Erin Bordeaux, who's our visual arts teacher. And I will say that she does more than just visual arts. She does digital photography. She's part of our yearbook club. There's a lot of functions that Erin is involved in, and having her as part of the school council is really exciting because she brings a great perspective to our meetings. So Erin, if you want to unmute yourself and just kind of introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hi everybody, my name is Erin. I've worked at Minuteman since 2008, and I have been a teacher, but my daughter also graduated in 2023, so I have multiple perspectives, and I know many of you because my father was the superintendent for a time, so nice to see some of you.
And then our other teacher member, Dan Charbonneau, who is a culinary teacher and a fabulous baker, and I will give him props because he also produced wonderful cake for our luncheon as well. I can see when I walk by and I see the students engaged, Dan is very, very hands-on with our students and making sure that they're doing what they are able to do. And I just wanted, Dan, if you could unmute yourself and do a little bit of introduction, that'd be great.
Sure. My name is Dan Charbonneau. I have been at Minuteman for 22 years in the culinary department, and I'm the baking instructor. And I look forward to working on the school council.
Thank you, Dan. We do have two parents that are on our council. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it tonight. They received, and tomorrow is actually our meeting. So I rather that they be at our meeting if they can make that. But we do have two parents that are part of our group, and that's Elena Spencer and Brooke Glass. Again, Elena comes to us with some expertise as she was part of the school council, the previous school council. So things that we've been reviewing, she has an insight of where the direction had come from when we're asking questions. Our own Riley Truesdale has also been part of our school council. So obviously having our student representative is one that's very important to us because, you know, we are part of even though we're a stakeholder and look at things from a certain perspective, having a student perspective is very important when we're making decisions or determining what we need to work on. So Riley has been great on that end of it. And the other part of the school council is there should be a community representative on our council. So I know I'm doing a little bit of a plug with the QR code that's there. We're currently looking for a community representative and ideally an employer of that's been working with our students. So if anybody is watching or is part of this and they want to just do the QR code and send me a recommendation, then I can contact that person. That is going to go to a Microsoft form that's just going to give me names so that we can figure out how to get this member on our school council. I'll just pause for 1 second in case you didn't get the QR code. Sharon's smiling, so I think she got it. So what have we been working on? So one of the things that, you know, a school council does is they focus on the educational needs of Minuteman students. So what we really have been doing, again, myself being new, is we've been looking at past improvement plans. What's been developed, what's been working, things like that. Things that we want to work with more, but we know that there has to be some goals that are established because our school improvement plan needs to be aligned with that. So when you're working on your school committee goals and we work on our school goals and that aligns with the school improvement plan, those are things that we're kind of reviewing so that we're heading in a direction that's positive and moving Minuteman forward, as I always say. And then, as we talked about in the summer, one of the big things that the school council is going to be working on is the revision of our student parent handbook. I think, again, having everyone at the table, looking at what's there, understanding the policies that was put into the handbook, what can, be recommended for us to look at and to maybe make adjustments to. That's going to be one of our major focuses moving forward. So, like I said, some of the relevant, I'm sorry, I'll go back to the handbook in a sec, but some of the relevant elements of the past school improvement plans that we have seen as a common theme is we want to continue to enhance parental involvement within the school. We want to continue maintaining and enhancing a welcoming school environment, obviously characterized by tolerance and respect for all groups that are entering Minuteman. And we want to continue enhancing student engagement in extracurricular activities. One of the things that has been noted is the addition of an extra late bus has been really good so that students can have choices throughout the school year of, maybe I stay here, but I have the ability to go to one or more things that's available to them. So those are some of the relevant topics that we've looked at so far. This sure will be more as we continue to delve into the school improvement plan. So then what's next? Again, we'd like to engage all stakeholders in when we're working on the student family handbook revision process. We'd like to draft a revised handbook, make sure that all parties are part of it. So that's including our staff, our E-team, and then having a final document ready for you to approve or review and approve by June of 2025. And I think that's all I have. So I'm definitely open for any questions that you may have. I will stop sharing my screen.
Questions or comments, school committee members? Alice.
So happy to see the school handbook being done in a thorough manner. Thank you very much.
I'm going to second that because that has been a problem. The school handbook and revising it and its current state has been an issue that comes up every year. And there have been a number of problems. I see Heidi's hand up. We'll get to her in a second. With it that have caused us some issues in, not really reflecting what we're doing, covering some things, not quite covering the right things. And I'm delighted that an effort is being made to look at it holistically and to maybe come up with a revised handbook that really does mirror what we're actually doing. Heidi.
I just want to formally recognize everybody who's dedicating their time to be on the school council, because we mention all these groups and the projects we're doing, and it sounds quick and easy, like many of you on subcommittees, sounds quick and easy, but it is truly a commitment. It takes time, it takes thought, and I appreciate the parents, the teachers, our student, and of course, Principal DeLeva for taking the time to do this well. So thank you all.
Any other comments or questions from the school committee membership on this report? We look forward to your revisions for the handbook. If you need anything from us to help you with the handbook, you will please let us know. We look forward to your report in June. I believe you
Thank you.
mentioned. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Thank you.
And is that the end of the principal's report?
Yes, that is the end.
Okay. Thank you very much. Brings us to the superintendent's report. I think we have two very interesting items under here.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. In the past, typically around this time, the superintendent gives an admissions update with numbers of applicants and things like that. This year, I'm sharing a little bit more about admissions with all of you because it is a hot topic across the state for vocational education. So you will get those numbers, but we're also going to talk about some issues that absolutely affect Minuteman and vocational education across the state. So if you have not heard, the hot topics in vocational education, or CTE, career technical education, are the ideas of a blind lottery, which is what charter schools do. Whoever wants to come, they're drawn out of a hat, people get seats. The discussion has come up about the blind lottery because of the limited seats available. There are more students than seats available in voc ed across the state. The other piece of this conversation that connects to lottery or no lottery is selective criteria. Should vocational schools have selective criteria to ensure that the elements that are essential to participating in voc ed are looked at before we enroll students? So I want to thank those of you who went to the Board of Education meetings. Alice actually drove out to Holyoke. I would like to call her. I was so thankful and impressed. I've been working with MAVA, which is the superintendent's organization for vocational school districts. And I made a statement in front of the Board of Ed. I know many of you watched it online. Alice was there in person, very early, very far away. And what's been happening is MAVA superintendents, the Massachusetts School Committee, Region 8 president have been making comments to the Board of Ed because they have had some business and some points and some statements about vocational education that we as a group have not had voice into. So we're making our voice heard, essentially. So why do these conversations matter? And now this is not new. I'm sure you have heard this before. Sometimes there's conversation about vocational schools cherry picking their students. Having worked in voc ed for so many years, I know that is absolutely not the case. But during this conversation about vocational schools selecting the cream of the crop, essentially, and leaving certain groups out, the data that was shared was absolutely flawed. There was information that was incorrect, and I'm going to share with you some of that information that I shared with the Board of Education that as it relates to Minuteman, and we have been discussing as an organizational group, MAVA across the state. Proponents of a blind lottery claim that a blind lottery will increase equity and access to vocational education. There were specific concerns raised by the Board of Education or by the Department of Education in front of the board about the number of English language learners enrolled in career and technical education schools. So Minuteman is one of the 34, what is called a wall-to-wall vocational school. That means that is our only program. Every single student is in a Chapter 74 program. There are other schools, many schools that have Chapter 74 programs, but they are not wall-to-wall, which means within the school, they can apply to be a part of those programs, but it is not half of their experience in high school like ours is. And if anyone has questions, I can only see a couple boxes, but please feel free to get Jeff's attention, interrupt me as we're going, because I'd rather stay on a slide and answer questions as we go through. Okay. So this is an example. Some of you have seen this because you have attended some of the vocational study sessions that were put on by the Department of Ed and the Board of Ed. Slides like this are absolutely jarring. From the years of 21 to 2024, vocational or CTE schools admitted English language learners at lower rates than non-EL peers. Same is true for low-income students. Same is true for low-income students with disabilities. Same is true for students of color. I'm going to read this line again. The non-student with disability.
Oh, we're losing Heidi. Heidi is frozen.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to keep my video off while I'm sharing my screen. Oh, I'm going to have to redo this. My entire thing shut down. Great.
The number one rule about technology is that it is guaranteed to fail when you need it the most. Keep that in mind whenever you turn on your computer.
Right. I will share this again. Okay. Another slide that was shared in one of these study sessions that was particularly jarring was that out of the 34 wall-to-wall vocational schools, 22 of the CTE schools made fewer than 20 offers to English language learners. And 20 of the 34 schools made fewer than 10 offers to English language learners. This, for those of you who watched, you saw the emotions that this, I guess, made happen, that sparked. I was watching this myself live, and in much like a school committee meeting, the public can't comment to say, whoa, wait a second, let's look at this. So here's a slide that I shared with the state. 34 total CTE schools you see from this navy blue bar. 20 of the schools made fewer than 10 offers to ELL students. The missing data was that only 16 of the schools had 10 applicants. We just didn't have them. We excluded the number of actual applicants. So it's important to see that 16 of those schools did not have 10 applicants who are in that category. And out of the 22 who had fewer than 20 offers, 21 of them had fewer than 20 applicants. So that's crucial information when we're making a decision and discussing inclusion or exclusion of populations. And I put a little reminder up here. Vocational schools admitted did not. 0 of 34 vocational schools admitted students with disabilities at the same rate or higher than their non-student with disabilities peers. And this is Minuteman's line. Of course, I'm aware of our Minuteman population. If you look at the dotted line at the bottom, that is the index or the comparison index from our region, from all of the special education students in our region. And as you can see, it's been very consistent. with their enrollment in our region's schools across all of these years. And Minuteman's line is this dark line. So not only, and I couldn't look up 34 schools, but I care about Minuteman. We actually have a substantially higher rate according to this comparison index. Questions about that? So where this data came from was a state dashboard that was created, and some of the data on the dashboard was baffling to many superintendents. So at this point, we do not have clear vetted data or evidence that a blind lottery will address the alleged admissions inequity or equity issue across the state's CTE schools. And we are making sure that we are a part of that conversation. The other thing I want to bring up is selective criteria. So some statements that have been made in public is that wall-to-wall vocational schools are the only schools that have selective criteria. The commonly used selective criteria since 2021 have been grades, discipline, attendance, recommendation, and interview. By law, the only discipline that can be counted are 10 days suspension or expulsions, felonies. We cannot just look at a discipline record. And as far as attendance goes, only unexcused absences can count in this selective criteria. And as a side note, so this was, this again was a DESE slide. It is true, we do use these things. There are many, many programs and schools with selective criteria. If we're not familiar with them, there are actual exam schools across the state, Boston Public Schools, the entire Massachusetts university system, including community colleges, educational collaboratives, advanced placement courses, honors courses, STEM or other academies within comprehensive schools, junior ROTC, sports, internship, the list goes on. So that is a picture of, hey, we have to look at education across the state and not just on CTE schools. But why CTE schools are a hot topic is because of the number of seats that we have. So what is next? I would kindly request that when we send out information about a Board of Education meeting where vocational education is one of the topics, please join, please watch. They are usually broadcast live through Vimeo, live video, and if you have not watched the ones so far, they are available online on their channel. I also highly recommend, even more important than the regular Board of Education meetings, are the CTE study sessions. At this point, there have been 3 of them. There was also a data subcommittee. So since all of the advocacy about please look at this data, let's have it accurate, the Board of Education decided to create a data subcommittee to look at this specific data before making decisions, which is wonderful. I am going to share with the committee, Julia will send it in an email after this meeting, the latest communication from MAVA to the Board of Education. I am going to continue to send that as it comes through so we can see how the conversation is progressing. And if you didn't know, we look at our own admissions policy to make sure we're in alignment with what may be coming down the pike and making sure that we are reflecting on our own access and equity. We had a joint legislative and policy subcommittee meeting to discuss in depth these issues and to talk about and look at our own admissions policy. That committee is meeting again in January 2025. According to the institutional knowledge that all of you have been sharing with me so wonderfully, when it came to some of the decisions that had to be made when DESE just came down with past changes, it was quick reactive changes. So we wanted to start meeting early with both the legislative subcommittee and the policy subcommittee to make sure we are proactive and thoughtful in everything that we do. Questions about these? Okay, so I'm sure you've all been waiting with bated breath for our actual admissions data. If you see the column in gray, that is our information from last year as of December 8th. We had a total 90 applicants as of December 8th last year, and that's the class of 2028, our current freshman class. If you look at the green column, we currently have a total of 143 in-district applicants. And I wanted to include or start including how many out-of-district applicants we have, because I do think that's important to know that people are banging down our door to come to Minuteman. Of course, we always fill from in-district, but we already have, these are completed apps that exist in our system right now. And some events that will be helpful if you know of families in your community who maybe did or did not attend open house and our showcase day. We have a virtual family information night on January 15th that will continue to be pushed out when we get the link and all that information. I will send it to all of you so you can share with your communities, put it on Facebook, put it on Instagram, put it everywhere. And the second, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, the second Winter Wonderland, which is more of an open house. It's a wonderful, positive event, but students who come visit do get an opportunity to experience our vocational programs during this Winter Wonderland event. And I think that is all I have. I'm going to stop my share. And I will put my video back on in hopes I don't get kicked off. Okay, I know that was a lot. And it's, I guess, a summary from 2011 and prior. Does anyone have questions or any clarifying points or information that you'd like to share? Yes, Sharon.
I think, and again, Amy or Katie, correct me, but I believe that the Winter Wonderland is more of like a family event for also encouraging like younger family members within the community to come in. Like last year, my young son and his friends all came in and there was a bunch of great activities and it was a fabulous event. But I think my understanding is that it was more geared for the community to try to get them to understand, like to get into Minuteman and to see it and then potentially think later on like, oh, that was a fun place I went to and let's go back and maybe, in 5 years, I might want to be there at school. So
we are still, yep, we are still including those, the younger students. They are not excluded. But as Paul and Erin, our director of admissions, and I discussed this year, we really do need to make sure that our 8th graders understand that they have access and they need to know what Voc Ed looks like. So we are definitely going to make sure we market more to 8th graders to make sure they know they are included in this. And we hope that this would be something that 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, you want to come back to every single year. All right. Other questions?
I just have a quick comment. It's incredibly discouraging that professionals in our industry are presenting information that is so flawed. And that is the part of it that we have to explain. You can't make good decisions if you have information that doesn't make sense. The earliest prime directive of computer technology was GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Without the right information, doesn't matter how smart your computer is, how great your algorithm is, get garbage coming out. And some of the information, some of the data that they put together had no merit. And that is very discouraging that professionals who should know better have done that. That's really my only comment on this ongoing issue. Maggie.
I just want to share, I mean, I don't have specific questions. The presentation was very clear. I want to share an appreciation for you and the time that you have put into advocacy, because I think that, you know, especially in a first year in a new district, it feels like there are plenty of things, even within the building, that could keep you busy all day. And yet understanding that this is sort of a existential threat to the existence of CTE education in general, I really appreciate it. And I think that it's such a narrow needle to thread, because it feels like that advocating for what we need in CTE is not supporting equity. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And I think that there's just, you know, if you're the Boston Globe or if you are a political person, it feels better to have this like damning data. And the fact that the reality of it is so much more nuanced, it's hard to get people to pay attention to nuance. And I just, from my point of view, really appreciate your advocacy and your willingness to kind of clarify it for us and for anybody watching this. Because, I mean, the reality is that, you know, sometimes if you're a family with English language learners, you have different priorities, maybe that make, you know, going out of district to a different school less appealing. And there's like so many layers and complications to that. I really appreciate your work.
I really appreciate you saying that very much. It is, being a superintendent at Minuteman has felt like sipping water from a fire hose, but I'm here for it. And I know if the actual structures that support vocational education are not in place, then we can't do what we need to do here. And I want to give another shout out to Principal DeLeva, Amy, I see Katie Bouchard, Nikki in here, Peter Kelleher, our administrative team and our teachers have made it so that I can do those things out of the building and make sure things are still happening the right way in the building. And it's been a lot, but I feel like we have a good team to make things happen.
That's a huge part of it too. Thank you for noticing. Yeah, you can't leave the building if there's always a fire going on. So keeping the day-to-day moving on in, you know, a positive direction. It's been really heartening to hear these presentations.
Any other questions or comments? I will say that the reaction of the Board of Education was very positive to Heidi's presentation and the presentation of at least one other career tech superintendent that I saw. I think that they were giving very, very impressive presentations and really caught people's attention. That's at least my takeaway from it.
All right, the second part of my presentation is introducing Assistant Superintendent Dr. Perot. And I will share my screen. I will be her Vanna White.
But you won't earn as much as Vanna White earned.
No,
don't you?
That wasn't
Okay.
a proposal. Don't worry, Jeff. It's okay.
Thank you, Superintendent Driscoll. Good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to talk to you about student services. I wanted to give a quick sort of overview of what student services kind of is and the services we provide and the students that we support. So the first group is students experiencing homelessness. I am the homeless liaison for the district, so supporting homeless students and homeless families starts kind of with me. I will say I am usually not the first person to know about it. Our support staff, guidance counselors, teachers are awesome. And students tend to go to them first and then they loop me in after. Students in foster care, I'm also the point of contact foster care liaison, I think is the official title, but that is me. And again, the same, I tend to get a notice from DCF or other adults in the students support network of someone that's entering into the foster care system, and then we continue to provide services. English language learners, not a huge population at Minuteman, but still require a varying level of services for their language acquisition. The re-entry after extended leave is our program that supports students that are coming back from a hospitalization or an extended medical leave. It's some of you may have heard of the Bridge program. It's based on that like model, where we found several years ago that students that were hospitalized mainly for mental health issues had a really hard time reacclimating into the building, and they ended up withdrawing to go to therapeutic programs within their sending districts for level of support. And we found that it wasn't a long-term level of support they needed. They just needed more of a short-term support to transition from one setting to the next. And since we have created this program, we have lots of, we have reentry meetings where all the adults in the student's life come together. We make a plan, they come in, and over the course of 1 to 2 weeks, they get caught up at work, they meet with their counselor, touch base with their shop teachers, make a plan, and make up work that is essential for them to move on and then acclimate back into the class. It's completely student driven. No one plan looks the same as the next. But we have seen such a dramatic increase in students being able to transition back, get into their classes, feel comfortable, feel safe, not have to withdraw to go to another program, and less often have to rely on the support of an outside placement or additional hospitalizations. There's students receiving special education services. You know that our numbers are above the average of the state. Currently, we're about a 45% special education rate of our student population. And then other students with disabilities, so not just students that have an IEP, but we also have students that have 504s, about 100 of our students, and then also healthcare plans. So any student that may have asthma or allergies or maybe diabetic, every student has to have an individual plan on how to provide care for that particular disability. So those are like the overarching services. And one of the things that I want to point out is that a lot of these things are kind of hard to plan for. So I know as you're working with the budget and you're looking at different things, transportation is a huge piece of what Minuteman does for both homelessness and foster care. And it's very hard to predict. Right now, between like last year and this year, our numbers fluctuate. Some students stay homeless for a month and some stay for the whole year. So it's very hard to predict what next year will look like now for our homeless and foster care populations. It's the same thing with our English language learners as the populations change. And that's also not our English language learners, but it's also our families whose first language isn't English. So we have to provide translation for all of our documents, our special education documents, for the parents in their native language as well. Related services as our disabilities in special education have changed. For some of you that have been here for a really long time, you know that about 10 years ago, it was less than 1% of our students whose primary disability was autism. Right now, it's 12% of our student population. So huge shift in presentation, which is amazing because it shows, again, that we're providing access to so many different types of learners, but that also requires different types of support for those learners to access the curriculum. And we start to see like a pattern, so we can sort of try to predict what might be coming down for those types of services as we look at trends. But again, we're special ed blind, so during the admissions process, we don't really know what services we need to provide for students until we get a look at those IEPs, and that's not until after students are accepted. So we're looking at late spring, and then as students are accepted kind of after the first wave throughout the summer. So I know that's a lot of information and I talked really fast. So is there any questions on that?
It's very hard for me to see your hand, so you got to really raise them if you have it. Okay, I see Alice.
I'm interested in the re-entry after extended leave. So how long are they on extended leave, like ballpark, range? And also, how do they make up the shop or major time if they're out?
Great questions. And there isn't an answer. I can say on average, most partial hospitalizations are about 5 to 10 school days long. So like at average, I guess 2 weeks. Some are much longer. Some are, they're out for extended weekend. There's also students that are out for concussions. So that varies, we've had students that are out for surgeries. So depending on what their mobility is coming back. So there isn't an average. I guess for partial hospitalizations, the average for that is about 2 weeks. And then it's really difficult. Our teachers are amazing. I mean, that's the first answer, is that they prioritize what the most important thing to learn is for the students, what they need to focus on so that they can continue to build upon that. We do have communication and contact with the students most of the time, regardless of the situation and the help that they're getting, so we can send work. So that's when related work comes in really handy for shop, is, whatever their related work is that they can do while they're gone. And then again, when they come back during that re-entry, we focus their time based on what they need. So if that means that they need a couple extra days in shop, we can work that into the schedule to get them caught up.
I have one further question, if you don't mind. This is the first time in 22 years that I've seen anything relating to students in foster care. So I wondered, are you seeing an increase in the number of students in foster care? Is that a trend beyond just our school, or is what's going on there?
For us, we haven't seen a dramatic increase. It has been pretty steady. I mean, I report to the state every year and I can get those actual numbers for you, but it hasn't been an increase in the last 5 years. It's been pretty steady. It's never nothing, but it's also never, for us and our small population, it's never gone to the double digits school-wide.
Okay, thank you.
I have a kind of a follow-up to Alice's question. Could you give me a snapshot? This doesn't have to be anywhere near the actual number, but just kind of the magnitude of the number of students in those first 4 categories.
Yes, I can. I'm counting. Roughly 35, but it's a very fluid number.
May I,
35.
May
in
I
all-
also add,
Yeah,
may I
yeah.
interrupt and add, I apologize, but there are students who are in several categories. So
True.
please understand that one student may be in 4 categories or one, so depending on the situation.
And how many about are in foster care and how many are homeless of our
Oh,
kids?
we actually, there are so few that we will not share that number on our, we don't want to possibly identify any students or have someone try, let's figure out who those are. So I am happy to touch base and share that with anyone, have a conversation separately. But we definitely don't want to blast that out on a school committee meeting. But I appreciate the
not-
question because
It's
I know
not
you have,
zero.
it is not 0 and it has not been 0.
Good. So I just wanted to bring that up to let the school committee members know that this is not just theoretical for us. These are real problems that the staff here deals with on an ongoing basis and that we pay for on an ongoing basis. And there are children, we take care of them. And it's really good to get a presentation to remind us of the kind of issues that some of our children are facing on a daily basis. And remember what Heidi said, you might have one kid who's in all 4 of those categories. So a lot of challenges that our administrative and teaching staff deal with on a regular basis and that we deal with in our budget on a regular basis. And I think I see Maggie's hand up.
I appreciate the clarification of the student services thing. And my experience, I think, Alice, to your point about foster care, I think that one thing that has changed in the last decade around schools and foster care is that my experience was that this has always been an issue, but there hasn't always been a designated point person in schools to respond to the issues that crop up. So in the past, it might be just a guidance counselor new. And I think the obligations of schools, you know, whether it's the homelessness and the McKinney-Vento Act, or with regard to foster care, I think in a slightly different context, is that we are obligated to educate the students, even if being homeless means that they are living quite a distance away. And that includes the transportation and it includes other kind of supportive wraparound services to ensure that they can access education during this period of whether they're, you know, foster students or homeless students. And like, to Amy's point, it is completely unbudgetable. And that can be a huge challenge for us as school committee members who are tasked with, you know, approving and making sure that the district is able to pay for these wraparound services for these vulnerable kids. So thank you for being so clear about the different categories of students who need that kind of support.
No other questions about that one. I can move on. I chose mental health. I wanted to give a more sort of deeper dive of one sort of area of the Minuteman services that we provide, which are vast. But I remember telling everyone a little bit about the mental first aid train the trainer a while back, and I knew that people were kind of excited about that. So I wanted to go into a little bit more of our mental health services. We're very fortunate that we have such talented mental health practitioners, and they all work in different capacities within the school, slightly through different lenses to support all of our students. We have 4 guidance counselors. We have 4 social worker / adjustment counselors that those are the clinicians that provide the direct services to students who need like school-based counseling. It's above and beyond the counseling that a guidance counselor would provide, or at the level that a guidance counselor would provide, but knowing that the student needs it as an ongoing sort of manageable, like scheduled time. So that our 4 guidance counselors can do all the things on their plates that they do. We have these 4 clinicians that provide the direct services that are on IEPs and 504s. And if you haven't heard me say it, you'll hear me say it more. I don't believe that you need to be on a specific plan in order to have your mental health needs met. So we have a system in place where the guidance counselors make a referral directly to me about a student, and then I can assign them to one of our counselors to check in with and then help the family, whether it's they see them themselves, they make a referral out. We have a great partnership with Advocates, which is a community-based program, but we bring in a clinician. God, we keep increasing her numbers, so I think she's up to 3 days a week that she's here. Doesn't cost us anything. The students get outpatient therapy while they're in the school if they bill their insurance directly, but it takes away the part of transportation. It takes away the part of finding a time that works for the family to get the student to after school. So it really is a win-win for everyone. So I should have added that to it, but we don't employ this person. We just have a great relationship with Advocates. We also use Advocates if we need like an emergency mental health eval, like in the moment. They're one of our partners that we can call if we need crisis help. And then some of the things that we do are our SOS screening, which is our signs of suicide. We do it with every freshman, and then we do a refresher in the junior year. So we like to get to know our freshmen better because, again, we're in the unique position that we didn't have anyone in 8th grade. So we always like to do our freshmen and kind of get a sense of who they are. But we all know as maturity and development happens over the years, different things can take place. So we do a bit of a refresher junior year. So we kind of just circle back and touch base back again. And that's with every freshman and every junior. We've also in the past offered parent SOS classes for parents to come in and learn it from a parent perspective, what the Signs of Suicide program is, and get educated on that. I wish we got to figure out a way to do that more via Zoom, because in person, it's hard to get a lot of attendance in that. So we're going to try to tweak that a little bit and do it more in this sort of virtual world. So this is huge to me. So over the summer, we used a mental health grant from the state to send 7 Minuteman staff to a train the trainer for mental health first aid. So myself, I was the only administrator, but we had counselors, we had vocational teachers, we had special education teachers, we had regular academic teachers. It was like the greatest mix of our school staff attend this very intense week of training to be trainers for mental health first aid. And I may have elbowed Principal DeLeva a little bit to take 2 of our professional development days, but we are going to train the entire school by the end of the school year, unless they were absent or whatever, is going to be a mental health first aider. They're gonna have those basic skills to notice things, to feel comfortable to respond to things in the moment with their students, to ask the question that they want to ask, but they're not really sure how to ask. They're gonna know how to ask. And when students come to them, I know that they want to say the right thing, but they never know if they're saying the right thing, if a counselor should say that, if they can say that. So throughout this training, they're going to get so many resources. And really, the goal is for me is for every staff in this building to feel comfortable talking to a student about mental health issues. It's not therapy, it's not crisis work, it's just first aid. I mean, it's a great name, mental health first aid. But because our 7 trainers are in the school, my long-term goal is incorporating this in so that as new staff come in, when staff retire out, that we continue to keep the training up so that all of our staff know how to support our students. And to me, that is very exciting. Any questions on that? I see Alice's hand.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for that. A lot of schools, they just are very reactive when some national disaster occurs in some state or another, and all of a sudden it's let's get to know the kids. But it seems to me over the years that Minuteman has always been focused on always knowing the kids, always knowing everybody in the school, and I really feel that's critical. And I'm glad that you have a plan in place to continue it and to train everybody. That's terrific.
Thank you. It's great.
Sharon.
Yeah, I was gonna echo what Alice said, and just as, you know, somebody who's had a student there within the last 4 years, to see the types of programming that you're providing for the students and to see the knowledge base of the teachers has been remarkable, and I really appreciate that you're kind of championing this, you know, training for all faculty, because I think with our population, especially with these kids having come out of COVID and what it did for their mental health and their social pragmatic skills, and I think it's just, it's critical, and I love that you're doing it, so thank you.
Thank you. Right.
Any other comments?
And my last piece, I'm gonna quote Principal DeLeva because I think he said he was putting out a plug for his advisory council. And I know that he talked about it and said that he was looking to increase parental involvement. So I'm stealing or jumping onto that. We have, as every school is supposed to have, is a CPAC, Special Education Parent Advisory Council. And I'd like to publicly thank Sharon Musto for her work on the CPAC for the last this is her 4th year, along with Will Barker. Unfortunately, they both have seniors and they're leaving. We have had a volunteer step up to say they would help, but we need a team to lead the CPAC. So we're working with the MPA to try to communicate the fact that we would like more parent involvement in our CPAC. So it's kind of a 3-tiered, we're looking to drum up participation. We have this isn't new. We have historically had very low participation in like CPAC programming. And that's not unique to vocational schools at all. All of my colleagues in our other vocational schools represent or say the same thing about their CPACs and participation. And a lot of that is because we're high school kids, and it's rare that a student is entering the special education world in high school. And parents tend to need that support when they're learning all the vocabulary and wanting a parent like who has shared experiences and whatnot. But as we're getting students in 9th grade, I think that level of support might not be as needed as it is in the earlier grades. It's a hypothesis. So I'd like to get membership up and get a new leadership team in place. And then we are members of MassPAC through the Federation. So that's how we support our CPAC. We send our leaders to the leadership training. Sharon, I think you went through that once. Yep. And then widen it. So, get our leadership team, train our leadership team, and then provide our training and support to our parents and caregivers. And the Federation actually, as part of that training, they also provide training to the larger CPACs as well. That is just on point, and they're great, and their delivery is specific to parents. So parents feel heard and validated, and it's in parent-friendly language. Like, I can't say enough that those are really great trainings for our parents. So we're looking to, it's kind of a rebuilding year, and I'm sad to see our current leadership go. And I just want to thank you for your many years of service. You'll be missed.
And I see Pam.
Thanks. I just wanted to add that, as a MassPac member, that you can get technical assistance to help specific issues. Doesn't just have to be the training, but can be technical assistance in terms of how to build it up, recruiting new members, whatever you want. So I encourage you to reach out.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Charlene.
Has there in the past or can there be in the future? As I heard what you said about, you know, low participation because this is not really the entry point of, for students and parents, in the, you know, 9th through 12th grades. Generally, parents have already been in the system for quite a while with their student. So, they don't necessarily need that beginner information. But are there opportunities for things that are really more focused to voc tech, like opportunities for special needs students or IEP students for you know, particular types of co-ops or accommodations during co-ops or things like that that might interest the parent population of our school?
I can jump in on that. So at a student accommodation, an individual student accommodation would not be the role of the CPAC. So the CPAC is a parent organization where we would hope we'd have a robust group who could inform us on our practices and as we grow our programming. And right now, as Pam said, we do need some help because we are in desperate need of people to come do that with us.
That's not what I meant, though. Let me explain. So the CPAC oftentimes does, I ran CPAC at Neshoba for 3 years. So the CPAC oftentimes does presentations for parents. And what I'm wondering is, are there opportunities for presentations for parents that are more, you know, gauged toward this age group, more gauged toward vocational education, vocational co-ops, things like that, so that the parent, you know, I mean, I've gone to understanding an IEP probably 10 times at least, right? But I haven't heard anything about special accommodations and co-ops or, you know, opportunities for students with special needs in, you know, job placements
Transition
or
employment, yeah.
transition, those type of things.
Yes,
but not the
sure.
typical transition. I mean, more like your voc tech transition.
So that is 1000% on the table. We need a CPAC leadership to work with Amy so we can get those resources in place. Have a meeting plan where we're meeting monthly or at once every term so we can do what the parents need to support their kids. So that type of idea is awesome. Amy can't do it alone, and that's where we are right now. And Sharon, and I don't know Will personally, but I think sometimes a struggle with the 9 through 12 CPACs for a district is that sometimes parents will come with a very unique issue for their, Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong, with a specific issue about their own child, and that's not the appropriate venue with a, you know, you go to the school, you come to Paul, or you go to us. But the CPAC is just like a school council, but focused on that particular population. And we need that so we can have those, create those resources, have a parent group that's active who's working in conjunction with Amy. And we need your help to recruit parents who are willing to put in the time like we do on a school council or like a subcommittee and those type of things.
And I would say just from my experience the last few years is that even when we tried to market, I think the largest, you know, the most widely attended event that we've had in the past 3 years was when we actually had Amy come in last year and present, kind of tell us about special education at Minuteman. And I think we had like 22 or something. And that was, wasn't it somewhere around there? You think it was less than that? I thought it was, I think we hit 20.
It absolutely was the highest attendance we've had in a long time.
But I think it's also, I mean, I think part of the problem with a vocational education school is that it's not so much that we're in 9 through 12 and we don't sort of need or have these questions anymore. I think part of it is that, again, you didn't know any of us from 8th grade. So we arrived at the school and everybody comes from different places. And especially most of us now, we arrived, the seniors arrived right after COVID. So you really didn't get to know anybody because there wasn't a lot of communication and time together. So I think that was one of the things that that Will and I felt over the last few years, is trying to find a way to reach out to the parents and get them to come in, or have, but it's the attendance of meetings. I mean, we were ad nauseum sending out reminders. We did start a Facebook page for the Minuteman CPAC, and that did get some, got a little bit of people joining that. But again, it was mostly like, here's the stuff that we were getting that were announcements, and we would just post them there, but not a lot of interaction and engagement. And I think it's just hard.
And Sharon, I like your point. We want
Heidi is frozen again. I think we'll hold on.
our ultimate goal.
You're back now. You were frozen for a minute.
Sorry, Heidi, all we heard was "we want," and that's then you froze.
We want people to not just do a one and done. I'm going to shut my video off, so hopefully it uses a little less of my my bandwidth here, I guess. We want people to be able to come and do the work and support the mission of Minuteman, and not come in for a one and done and then they come in for, we need a small committed group, and hopefully we can get to that this year, and they'll work in partnership with Amy.
Charlene.
You have some thoughts on that. One of the things that I did, which worked really well, was combining with other CPACs. So getting together, in our case, perhaps with other CPACs of vocational education, to do targeted vocational ed CPAC presentations might be good, or even getting together with the CPACs from our sending districts to have more of that community feel, because and then the third point is to really mix it up with those who are not necessarily CPAC attendees. So one of the most successful events that I had was Sarah Ward and executive functioning, because that is something that all students struggle with, whether you've got a child that's got special education needs or not. The majority of students in school today are struggling with executive functioning. So a lot of parents are attracted to that. And by having something that has more wide appeal to all parents and is published to all parents, it can get the CPAC more exposure.
I do believe that is the end of your report, Amy. Is that correct?
That is, unless there's any other questions.
Yeah, I will say that your report was extremely well received by the school committee. It was very clear, and it emphasized a number of areas that I'm very happy that were emphasized to the full school committee, especially your slide showing all the different groups that you deal with, and the fact that we have some of each, and that you and the staff managed to work with all these kids and to help them out. So thank you very much for that. And then we move on from special education to finance.
Okay.
Steve.
Thank you so much. As Jeff mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, the Finance Committee did meet last Monday, December 2nd, and we were able to review version 1 of the superintendent's recommended budget. And I'll have to say from the get-go, and I'm sure my fellow committee members agree, that for a first time putting the budget together, it was very impressive what Heidi has done. When we back in November saw the departmental request, Heidi reviewed those, and she basically decreased those requests by $1.1 million. So where we're kind of at right now after version 1 is combined our total operational and capital budget is up about 2.99%, just a little under 3%. And the required member town assessments would be up about 3.34% on average. However, we did express a couple concerns, and one of them actually was pointed out in Amy's presentation, and that's the area of transportation. We've seen a pretty big increase in transportation, particularly for foster care, and this is also going to be we'll be opening up bids for our regular school bus transportation in the near future, and the superintendent had only budgeted for a 5% increase in the transportation bid. So we've asked her and Nikki to kind of revisit the whole transportation issue just to make sure we've got some wiggle room in that line item. And similarly, we were a little concerned about goods and materials that are used for academics, primarily because of inflation. And if some of these tariffs come to be, particularly building materials that come from Canada, we just want to make sure that the numbers in those areas, transportation and supplies, are realistic going forward. And as Amy mentioned in her presentation, transportation is a wild card, particularly in the foster and homeless situation. So, and it's hard to find drivers, as I understand it. So when it's hard to find drivers, that means the costs go up even more. So we will be meeting again next Monday, the whatever that is, and hopefully we'll be able to come out of that meeting with a recommended budget that we can present to the full school committee in January. But I have to say, I've been involved with budgets for like 40 something years. I don't even want to even think about how long it's been, but this is like one of the best preliminary budgets I've ever seen, and very impressed with both Heidi and Nikki and the work they've done. So it makes our FinCom's job a lot easier, and hopefully maybe we'll get some harder numbers on those two areas and be able to present a really good budget to the full school committee in January. So unless there's questions, that basically concludes my report.
Would Sarah like to add anything else to that as another FinCom member?
I would just echo Steve's sentiment that Nikki and Heidi have done a great job and very thorough. And there's a lot of detail that they take us through, but it's important to know all the components.
Any questions from the membership on that? Very brief, just an appetizer for the budget, the big budget details that are coming down the pike.
Full course of dessert will be in January.
Sharon,
you're muted.
I know, I was trying to like unmute and I couldn't find my mouse. I appreciate what you are looking at as far as transportation, because I know that that's been an ongoing issue of like just the cost of transportation and the quality of transportation. And I wish that there were more bus companies in our vicinity that would be willing to do things. So
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I actually did not know, but I learned from Nikki, is that these bus companies kind of divvy up areas. So I hate to say it, it's almost like the trash collection on The Sopranos. I mean, it's like it's kind of like that. So it makes it harder, and definitely harder to control costs for sure.
yeah.
Very well. Other aspects of your finance report, Steve, for today?
That was pretty much it. I mean, that's where we're all about.
Any comments, Nikki or Heidi, since we mentioned the budget?
And I just want to thank all of you for your patience. This was a lot to get through. Like I said, I'll reiterate the sipping water through a fire hose. So I'm excited to get through the process. And I just wanted to mention, we have been speaking, most of you, I think Nikki and I have talked to town managers, town administrators, finance committee members from other towns. So I just wanted to make sure you know that's going on in the back.
Very good. If that's the end of the finance report, we move on to subcommittee reports, and we have the joint policy legislative subcommittee update. So that'd be both Alice and Charlene.
So if it's okay with you, I'll do policy and Charlene will do legislative. Is that all right? You've already heard quite a bit about the admissions thing, but I wanted to remark a bit about it myself, because if you think about over the years, the current admissions policy is actually something that we inherited and tinkered with a couple of years ago under pressure from the department. And I think Amy can recall if it was maybe 2 years of work to do that. There was constantly new information coming to us, and it was something else. But there has been a remarkable focus on these 34 schools admissions policy. When you consider the Department of Education had the board meetings Friday, Monday, and Tuesday, consecutive days of that whole board of people to discuss vocational admissions in these 34 schools, when they have reading problems statewide, when they have attendance issues, all kinds of curriculum issues, building problems, any number of things that affect a great many people more than is affected here. But they chose to do that. And it's just something that's curious to me, and I kind of like to understand it better. And because I like to understand things, and we did spend a good meeting going through every bit of the current admissions policy to just understand, is there a room for improvement? And yes, there is in all of it. I spent a little bit of today looking at the admissions policy recommendations on the DESE website, and it took me some work, but I discovered that the current recommended boilerplate policy was written in 2021 and hasn't been updated. It does not say that on the front page. You have to go into the properties of the Word document, but it's in there. 2021. They haven't changed anything since then. So, I feel like there's going to be more surprises, because that's how this seems to play out every time they do it. We're gonna work on it, but as Heidi mentioned, it's a long process. It's not going to be one meeting to just redo the admissions policy, and then we're not going to know what actually happens at the board level, up ahead of us, that for a while, there are forces at play that I don't understand. And I just keep coming back to this 3 consecutive board meetings. Can you imagine if Jeff called a board meeting on Friday, Monday, and Tuesday to talk about an issue? I mean, nobody does that, So I'm not sure what their beef is, but as Heidi said, the data is not there for the proposal that they're making. Data-driven decision-making used to be what everybody said in their sleep with education, but they're not saying that. So, we'll look at it. We have other things on our plate, which, as usual, when this comes up, when the admissions policy comes up, sometimes we get sideswiped by it and it takes over, but I think we'll still go back to what we were working on before, which is the other policies that we're behind on. But I just want to make everybody think a little bit about that 3 consecutive meetings about an issue that affects so few people. That's it for me.
Jeff, do you want me to start? So like Alice, I have thoughts on this as well. As far as the subcommittee goes, we're at a little bit of a standstill right now because we're trying to figure out what is happening with the MASs and the MASC response to this I don't even know what to call it. You know, this admissions crisis that the powers that be are narrating. Anyone who walks through our Voc Tech schools knows that they're pretty diverse communities. In many cases, far more diverse than our sending communities. I mean, I can say that's the fact for my town. Just going to a football game at Minuteman versus going to a football game at Neshoba, there's a huge level of difference in diversity. And Minuteman is way more diverse than Neshoba. And that's nothing against Neshoba, it just happens to be the demographics. Anyway, I'm very concerned with the level of faulty data. I know that the Board of Education is also very concerned with this. That's why they have the data subcommittee, and that's great. We can applaud them for seeing this and acting appropriately in response thereto. But I guess the thing that's frustrating me most is that Voc Tech schools are being given a bad rep. They're being given they're being painted with a broad stroke of being discriminatory, of not allowing these ELL students, of not having special ed students. And that's simply not true. Our special ed student population is much higher than the comprehensive counterparts. And, you know, we do a lot of work with all kinds of diverse communities, you know. So it's very frustrating to be accused of something that is simply not true. And I have a hard time with such blatant injustice. So I've been really chomping at the bit to write a letter. I want to write a letter. I want to send it to everybody. And I've just been, you know, everybody's been kind of like, hold on, right? Because we need to see what the positions are going to be with MASS and MASC. I did invite Division 8 to Minuteman this weekend, but due to the holidays, there doesn't seem to be enough. We don't think we're going to be able to get enough people to come on a holiday, pre-holiday weekend. So we're holding off until after the holidays, and we're waiting to see more direction from the leadership as to how they're going to proceed, because we just don't want to be going to do something quickly that isn't well thought out. That's where we stand. We will have a joint meeting with policy next month, and if more develops, we may have a quick meeting for just this legislative subcommittee so that we can propose at our next meeting, or, you know, to have a special meeting to get something done more quickly. Sorry if that was long-winded. Jeff, you're muted.
So sad. School committee members, comments or questions? Very well then, thank you, Alice and Charlene. Guess what? This is an issue we're going to hear about a lot coming up. Alice, you did have another comment. Got to push that magic button.
Mouse on the table. I'm going to go to the next Board of Ed meeting. So if anybody wants to witness history, I'm happy to carpool. I've got an electric car, not going to pollute the airways. Just go along, and I think it's good to have the public present at these things, because especially if you talk to your legislator eventually, if something like that is necessary, it's good to be able to say, I was there. That actually is important. So if anybody wants to go, Charlene, you want to go? So we'll go and we'll just sit there and listen. You know, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to sit there and listen. I usually take notes. That keeps me out of trouble.
What's the date?
It's next week sometime.
Okay, next week sometime.
Tuesday morning.
Yeah, it's usually Tuesdays.
It's in Everett this time.
Tuesday morning in Everett.
Yeah.
So I
Charlene.
hear a rumor, it may be virtual, but they haven't put that out yet. So when it does come out officially, I'll make sure that Julia sends it to the whole committee.
Mhm.
It'd be great if it was virtual, although then they don't know we're there, but.
Right. Charlene.
I was just gonna make another comment that, Desi is obviously in search of a new, commissioner, and they are seeking feedback for anybody who watched those, sessions. You may or may not want to provide some feedback. We haven't decided as a committee whether we're providing any feedback as a committee, so you'll be providing it
Yeah.
as an
Okay.
individual.
See no more hands or comments, so I believe we've come to item 10, which is adjournment. Unless there are any final comments? No final comments. I would like then a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
We have a second. Roll call vote. Pam.
Pam Nurse Acton, yes.
Sarah Montague Arlington, yes.
Linda Herbison Bolton, yes.
Steve Ledoux, Concord, yes.
Maggie Sharon Dover, yes.
Ellen Gabral, Lancaster, yeah.
Sharon Musto Lexington, yes.
Jeff Stulen Needham, yes.
Alice Lucas, Joe, yes.
So everybody, thank you. All the attendees, thank you. School committee members. We have lots of exciting stuff coming up for the rest of the year. Look forward to it. Thank you again, Amy and Paul, for all those reports telling us really what's going on. That's very, very important for us to hear. And everybody have a good night, and we will see you in January. So enjoy your holidays. If I don't see you before then, bye-bye.